G'day again, team. So here we are again today, looking at motor skills today. Now, if you're playing along in your essentials book, this is where the book starts to change a little. So if you've got the new book, which most of you have probably got these days, you would be looking at topic 4, how skill is acquired. If you've got the old book, this is probably where you're in the old section 2, so what they'll call topic 5 if you like, or topic 1 of the new section. Okay, so we're looking at skill learning, quite simply. So the first thing we need to know is, well, what are skills? Now, skills, as we can see here, is being able to produce a result with maximum certainty and minimum outlay of time or energy. So we can all produce skills, but the key words in there is maximum certainty. So you look at Tiger Woods here, the golfer, teeing off. Now he knows when he tees off, he's going to put it 250 metres down the middle of the fairway every time. Now, Mr. Driver can do that, but it might be 1 in 5, 1 in 10. So I don't have that certainty about it. And the other thing is minimum outlay of time or energy. So when us as phys ed teachers are trying to teach you a technique, the reason we're trying to teach that particular technique is because it is likely to give the greatest amount of success, now whether success be accuracy or distance, with the minimum outlay of energy. Okay. Now, when it comes to learning skills, there's lots of different ways we can, all right, and we are all different learners. Right? So we could be more about the kinesthetics in terms of touch, hands-on learners. All right? Boys are notorious for, you look at what subjects they're good at. Traditionally, it's always things like wood tech and PE, things where they can get hands-on with their learning. All right? Other people learn better through visual in terms of seeing. Some are verbal. All right? So when we are appealing or we are teaching, we've got to make sure we try and target as many of these different styles as possible. So you look at your phys ed teacher, if you've got a good PE teacher, chances are they'll use a demonstration so people can see, and then they'll also put cues in amongst it as well. So they're linking those two styles together, right? Then get the people to actually do it, and hopefully that way we're appealing to all our different types of learners. Okay, which is what we've got here. People learn in different ways. So as much as possible, we want to try and target those different learning styles. We need to make sure we are catering to different people. We can't just say, no, I'm going to do it one way and everyone else has to learn. Skill classification, just making sure I haven't missed a slide there. So a lot of this I'm hoping you would have covered in stage 1, year 11 PE. And this should just be a case of a refresher. So skills can be classified in a number of ways. One way we can do that is through the continuum of discrete, where they might have a distinct beginning and end. So for example, kicking a football. I can see exactly where it starts, I can see exactly where it finishes. D, discrete for distinct beginning and end. Another way we might classify a skill is continuous. So if we've got no distinct beginning or end. So in other words, if I look at that skill, can I work out where they've started it and where they've stopped it? Example being, well, it's not surprising, continuous activities. Things like running, things like swimming. Whereas I said, if I suddenly start watching, where does it start and begin? Whereas kicking a football, I can clearly see where that starts, I can clearly see where that ends. And then we have serial, where we string together several discrete skills. So an example might be, let's say, rebounding a netball. That's one skill. Vertical jump, rebound, grab the ball. All right? That's a distinct skill. Another distinct skill might be a chest pass. Right? And then another one might be a bounce pass. They are all discrete skills because they have a distinct beginning and end. Whereas if we string them together, suddenly we rebound, we pass off to the wing defence, we run back down the court, get the ball again, and then bounce pass into the goal circle. We have strung those skills together, so it becomes what we call serial, stringing together several skills. Okay. We can also classify skills in terms of the muscle groups they use. So fine motor skills involve small muscle groups. For example, texting is a great example, where we're only using small muscle groups, right? Or playing the guitar in terms of playing chords. We're using small muscle groups. Gross motor skills involve movements of large parts of the body. Now that's probably going to be most of your sporting examples, because most of our sporting examples have us throwing or kicking or jumping, where we are using large muscle groups. Skills can also be classified as either open or closed. Quite simply, the easy way to remember it, open is unpredictable. Open, right, generally there's an external factor determining your decision. Right? So in other words, open generally will mean, hey, you don't have control over everything. The example being here, we've got a cricketer, Matty Hayden. When we're standing there batting, we are waiting for a ball to come at us, based on where the ball is, what shot we hit. So therefore, it's external factors that determine what shot I hit. All right? A lot of team sports are going to be open because we have opponents. All right? We have people moving around. The ball can go in different places. So based on where the ball goes as to what decision I make. So open is unpredictable and external factors impact on your decision making. Closed, very predictable. In other words, you have control over the skill. The example being here, basketball foul shot. Easy way to look at it is this point here. Very little decision making. So if a skill is closed, generally there's not a lot of decision involved. Basketball foul shot, what's my hit? I've just got to shoot it. 100 metres, all right? Very much a closed skill. I've got control. Gun goes bang, I run fast. Golf, very closed. The ball's on the ground, it's not moving. I select the club and I hit the ball. Okay. Whereas we go back, open skills, we said team sports. There's lots of decisions. Do I kick to the full forward? Do I kick to the wing? Do I kick to the centre? Who do I pass to? All right. All that's determined on, again, external factors like opponents. Okay. So a little activity that you could do is go, okay, where would I place these different activities along the open-closed continuum? So, for example, hitting a softball off a tee. Well, is there much of a decision? No, I've just got to hit it. Is there anything impacting on that outside? Is anyone throwing the ball at me? Not really, so it's fairly close, so I might put it down this end. And you could go through all the different activities and look at where do they fit. All right? Now, they don't have to be open or closed. Yeah, they could lie in the middle. If you think something is, it's open a little bit, but there's also a bit of closed nature to it. So it's a matter of placing them along the continuum where you think they fit. Learning open and closed skills. Closed skills are much easier to learn. So you think back to your Year 8 PE days, whatever the sport might have been, soccer, and your PE teacher probably had you standing 10 metres apart from a partner, passing the ball back and forth, practicing trapping and practicing passing. Well, that's because they're trying to close the skill down. They put you in a game and try and get you to learn those skills. There's opponents, there's teammates, the ball's flying around, there's a lot of open factors. Whereas we've now closed it down, right, where the only external factor is my partner passing the ball to me, it makes it a lot easier to learn. So that's why your PE teacher would do it, to try and get you to learn, right, those closed skills and then slowly open them up. Right? So some open skills can be, can be changed to closed. So for example, softball, hitting off a tee. Softball in itself is quite open when you've got a pitcher pitching the ball. Right? But we can move that into a closed skill by taking the pitcher away, putting the ball on the tee, and now it's became closed. So when it comes to learning skills, this is suddenly so much easier. Okay? Take the unpredictable nature out. Make it more predictable. Give the learner the opportunity to learn the skill. So as we learn these skills, we might actually become a skilled performer. And what are the characteristics of a skilled performer? They have time, okay? They make correct decisions, they're able to anticipate, they have a smooth and effective technique, and they can cope with pressure, okay? A skilled performer. This is one thing to remember. Space equals time equals skill. So the more space you have, the more time you have, the better the skill is going to be. So again, you go back to Year 8 PE days, if we're learning soccer, we might make quite a big field. That way the kids all spread out, they end up with more space. They've got more space, they've got more time. By having more time, they're going to have a better skill. Whereas a smaller field, the kids are all crammed in, don't have as much space, suddenly the skill drops off. So, going back to these characteristics of a skilled performer. Time. You quite often hear people say they've got all the time in the world. That comes from their ability to read the play. They've been in these situations before, and they're able to make decisions based on the cues presented. So we've got down here decision making. They're able to make decisions based on the cues. They've seen it before. They've got the experience. They've seen it before. So therefore, they're able to anticipate and end up with more time. Okay, we spoke about anticipation just previously. I said they've recognised the cues, they've been there before, therefore they make the decisions quicker, they get into position quicker. Get into position quicker means they're in the right spot. Hey, we've now got more time that we can actually put that time into our technique. All because we were into the right position. You think about someone playing tennis, for example. Someone playing tennis, if they've got more time, they're able to make quicker decisions, they're able to anticipate. Think about someone receiving the serve. What that means is they've actually moved into position quicker. So they've moved into position, ready to return the serve. Now they've got more time to put it into their technique. So they actually execute the shot better. Whereas a beginner, since they don't make decisions as quick, since they aren't able to anticipate, they are rushed with this, which leaves them with less time for this, which is why they end up with a poorer outcome. Okay? The other thing with skilled performer, hey, they're able to handle pressure. The reason they're able to handle pressure is they've been there before. Right? They know their technique is going to hold up, so they can worry about other things. So whereas a beginner is worried about, let's say, kicking a football, oh, am I going to get it right? Am I going to get it right? The expert, the skilled performer, they know they can kick the football. They know that's going to work out. So they're actually worried about what's happening in the environment. Where are all the opponents? Right? They know they've got the skill. I don't have to worry about focusing my attention on the skill. I'm going to focus my attention on what's happening in the game. Okay. Now, when it comes to learning skills, there are 3 stages: cognitive, associative, and autonomous. Now, cognitive is all about understanding. So imagine the cogs in your brain ticking over so that you can understand what's happening. Associative is all about practice, practice, practice. And autonomous is when it becomes automatic. So it doesn't matter what skill you're learning, whether it be the drop punt in football or learning how to drive. Right? We will go through each of these stages. How much time do we spend in them? Hey, it depends on the individual. Some people might progress through the stages very quickly. Others might only get to the associative stage and then stay there. It does depend on the skill we're learning, the individual, and also the time put in. So cognitive, what the cognitive stage is all about is learning what is needed. So understanding. You're going to make a lot of big mistakes and you're going to make them regularly. You need correct demonstrations to see what's going on. You need clear instructions. It's all about the kinesthetics, feeling the movement. Now I've got the picture of the snowboarder in there, mainly because for you guys who have just been on a school ski trip last year, or whether you're going this year, this is a new skill for a lot of you to learn. And it's a skill that a lot of you have got no previous experience in. So it's a great example to use when we look at the cognitive stage. Chances are the first couple of days you made a lot of big mistakes and you made them often. So in other words, you fell on your ass a lot. You needed to see those demonstrations from your instructor. And when you were learning what was needed to be done, chances are you're talking to yourself because you're trying to understand. So you would have spent the first maybe 2-3 days in the cognitive stage. Then as you progress, you move into the associative stage where it's about practice, 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 practice. Okay? You start to make fewer mistakes and you start to recognize your own mistakes. So for example, on the first day, all right, when you felt yourself falling over, you probably fell over, it landed on your ass. Now, maybe in about the 4th or 5th day, you can start to feel yourself fall over and you adjust yourself. So you can actually fix some of your mistakes. And then the 3rd stage is autonomous, when it becomes automatic. Anxiety is reduced, okay, because we know we can perform the skill. We're able to concentrate on other things. So the example I gave before of the footballer, no longer worried about trying to kick the drop punt because they know how to do that. They're now worried about what's happening in the game. Okay. Or the snowboarding example here, old mate's snowboarding and he's on the phone because he doesn't have to worry about the skill. He knows he can perform that skill. So, they're all the stages of learning, but then we go, well, hang on, what's the best environment for learning? We want something that's interesting. So we want an interesting environment. We know if we're going into a boring environment, all right, think your maths class, you're normally losing interest before you're even going in there. So it needs to be interesting and stimulating. Provide challenging but achievable goals. This is why those stupid little apps like Flappy Bird and everything, Candy Crush, we all keep coming back to, because they are challenging but achievable. They're not that hard that we give up after 15 minutes and go, nah, I'm not experiencing success. And they're not that easy that we get bored with them. Right? So they're very clever marketing. And that's what we like. We like a challenge. We do want to be challenged. We want encouragement and we want to be free of distractions. Right? That is the ideal learning environment, whether it be in a classroom or whether it be out on the oval learning a practical skill. Okay, our model of skill. So, 4 stages we need to be aware of. When it comes to input, this is information received from the playing environment. So if I've got input, it might be things like the weather, right, the crowd noise, the referee, my teammates, the opposition, the actual ball. All this information is coming in to the input. So input is just me receiving information from the playing environment. What I then have to do is make a decision. So based on all the input I receive, I have to make a decision as to what is the best response for me to take. I make a decision and then I output it, I execute it. So the actual response I make. Then once I've done that, I provide myself with feedback. I take that feedback and then I'm able to use that in the input stage. So did I make the right choice? Was it successful? How can it be improved? So an example might be, again, I'll stick with my tennis serve. So the input might be the crowd, all right, the weather, the opponent's racket face, the ball toss, all this information is coming in. Based on that, I'm going to make a decision of what serve they've got. All right? So I'm deciding, based on the ball toss, they're going down the line. So my output response is to move down the line with maybe a backhand. Feedback would be, did I choose correctly? Yes, I made the right choice, or no, based on the cues that were presented, they're going cross court. Right? So I can provide that feedback for next time. Okay. So where do we get this information from? Hey, we can get it from all sorts of places. All right? It's all our senses. All right? Also proprioception, which is our body's ability to feel, kinesthetics. All right? We're getting this information everywhere from our learning environment. Factors that input how much information comes in, that impact, all right? It's what we refer to as important cues, or whether we process it as noise. So for example, if I'm watching the ball toss, the crowd yelling out and screaming, not that they do in tennis, but the crowd yelling out and screaming, not important. So I would just factor that under noise. And we've all done this when we play sport. You know, someone says to you, oh, did you hear me yelling out to you? No, because for the sake of the performance, that's irrelevant noise that you have blocked out. You're only focusing on the cues that are important. Right? So we want to block everything out. The more we can block out, the more we can focus greater attention on those relevant cues and execute a good result. So, receiving information from vision, So whether it be following an object, judging distance, identifying colours. This all goes into our input. All right, and this is a couple of examples of where it's gone wrong. Okay. Now, there's a process known as signal detection, determining whether a signal is present or not. So the ability of the body to pick up a stimulus depends on, all right, the intensity of the stimulus and the effectiveness of the organs picking up the stimulus. So signal detection could be, I'll stick with my tennis example, the position of the ball toss. So pro tennis players, Djokovic, Federer, these guys know what serve is coming based on the ball toss. Right? So based on the position of the ball toss, right, they're picking up certain signal detection. Now that means they can start to identify their response. Now we can actually make it easier to pick up some signals. Right? How do we make it easier? The size of the object. Well, the bigger it is, the easier it's going to be seen. Distance away from the object. Right? The colour or brightness of the object, the background colour, the speed of the object. So an example down here is cricket. Right? The signal or the stimulus we are trying to pick up as a batsman is the ball. Now that's a tiny little red ball, which if you hold up, very much looks like someone's face in the crowd. And since you're 20 metres away from it, it's actually quite hard to pick up. And it's coming down at 150 kilometres an hour. So what do we want to do? We want to try and make the signal detection easier. So what do? They put this big white sight screen behind the bowler's arm. So a red ball is held up in front of the white sight screen. It makes it easier to see. So suddenly it's easier to see. They're more likely to actually be able to hit the ball. Now we've actually got a good game of cricket. We can also do the same with noise, okay? In terms of whether it be the umpire blowing a whistle or anything like that. Right? Now, how do we improve signal detection? Well, we've just spoken about that. All right? Professional athletes will identify a stimulus much better because they've been there, they've seen it before. Right? So for children, it might be a case of let's use larger objects, let's use brighter colours. All right? Let's slow the object down. Okay, things like that. All right. What also depends on how well we pick things up could be how switched on we are. All right? The curve of arousal. So in other words, the more switched on we are, the more aware we are, the more likely we are to be able to pick up a stimulus. So if we are not aroused, in other words, our awareness is quite low, so think of being sleepy, half asleep, right? We're not going to pick up a stimulus that well. If we're at the other end, we're too eager, we're too keen, we're too nervous, or we're too excited, again, our performance is going to be decreased. There is an optimum level where, yes, we want to be alert, but we don't want to be over the top with our alertness. Right? It's what we refer to as the curve of arousal. Right? More switched on we are, the greater the response is likely to be. Okay, so under aroused, as we spoke, someone who's tired, performance will be dropped. Over aroused, right? Hey, again, the performance won't be great. Beginners want to be more under aroused. So you think of a learner, we probably want them on this lower end. Think of a little kid learning a skill. If they are over aroused or over anxious, quite nervous, all right? Oh, if I mess up, the teacher's going to yell at me and scream, their performance will drop off. So we probably want them on this lower end, all right? Just a little bit. So, depending on the skill we're trying to perform, the more complex, all right, the lower end of the arousal scale, the more simple the skill, all right, the further along we want to be. So an example would be like golf putting. We don't want to be over anxious. All right, we don't want to be under aroused. Sorry, we want to be more under aroused. We want to be relaxed. We don't want to be tight and tensing up and holding the golf club really tight. Whereas something that's a little bit more simple, we do want to be a bit more focused. Because if it's simple, we want to make sure we get it right. Okay. Reaction time. movement time and response time. Right? This all plays an impact on skills and how well we can perform the skill. Right? So, quite simply, reaction time, the amount of time between a stimulus and the first movement. So it might be, hey, reaction time is the amount of time between the gun going bang and us actually moving. Right? Movement time is the time taken to complete the task. So in other words, getting out of the blocks. Response time is going to be the two combined. So Muhammad Ali, his reaction time was sensational. A standard reaction time is about a quarter of a second. Now Ali, it took him about 0.05, 0.06 of a second to move his fist 40 centimetres. So a boxer's probably going to have a little bit better than a standard reaction time, so maybe 0.15, 0.2. But what Ali could do is he could go bang, bang, all right, with two fists over 40 centimetres before most people could actually respond, which what made him one of the best boxers in the world. And you think of a standard response time being that quarter of a second, and we look at a few practical examples. Well, baseball, it takes half a second for a pitch to travel the 18 metres. So if it takes us a quarter of a second to respond, what that means is we've got 0.25 of a second to actually respond to the ball, and then 0.25 of a second to actually execute our technique. Same as for cricket. All right, half a second for the ball to get released to the batsman. So in that half a second, we have to identify the ball, we have to make a decision, we have to execute a shot. So almost some of these sports, we almost have to premeditate what shot it is that we are actually going to select. And then you start thinking, well, how are these guys and girls able to identify and execute the correct shot in such a short amount of time? It becomes quite an impressive skill. Now, when it comes to reaction time, there's two types. It's what we call simple reaction time and a choice. Simple as that. All right, there is simply one response. So, for example, there's your Formula One. Light goes green, we go fast. Sprinters, 100 metres, gun goes bang, I run fast. There is only one possible response. Okay, then we've got a choice reaction time where, as the name suggests, we have a choice. So the netball centre with the pass. We've got the wing attack leading up, the goal attack, the wing defence, the goal defence. Suddenly there's 4 passes available. So they have to make a choice as to who is in the best position. Which one are we expecting to be the quickest one? Hey, quite simply this one. I don't have to think about the response. It's just a case of see the response, bang. Whereas this is going to be a little bit slower because we have to process our thinking. Which one is the best option? Okay, so that's our skill classification and everything involved in that. All right, as I said, there's a lot of stuff in there that I'm hoping we would have covered at stage 1 level, but we've looked back over it, and they are a lot of stuff that would be very much assumed knowledge. Skill learning is a big part of the exam, and it's one that's certainly over the last couple of years become more and more in vogue. All right, so thanks team, until next time.